My neighbor kept complaining about our dog barking at night. So I did what anyone would do. I called animal control every night for a week. When he came begging me to stop, I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You brought this on yourself." He has no idea what's coming next. I never thought it would get to this point. I really didn't. It started pretty normal. I've lived in this house on the south side of Columbus, Ohio, for 4 years. Quiet neighborhood, mostly older folks, families. I'm 38, single, work from home, and I keep to myself. My dog Baxter is pretty much my whole world. He's a black lab, 7 years old, goofy, gentle, not aggressive. He does bark sometimes at night, usually when he hears something outside, which is his job, right? At first, I honestly didn't think it was a big deal. He'd bark once or twice, usually around 10 or 11 at night. I'd go out back, calm him down, bring him inside. No one ever said anything for years, until Mr. Green moved in next door. I noticed him right away, very meticulous, always in slacks, even when mowing the lawn. He repainted his garage door twice in 1 month, kept his trash bins in perfect alignment with the curb, didn't wave when I walked past, just a nod if that. The first time he complained was one Tuesday night. I was watching TV, and I heard a knock on the front window. Not the door, the window. I got up, and there he was, standing there, arms crossed, looking pissed. "Your dog keeps waking me up," he said. I opened the door, a little confused. "Sorry, he's just a little jumpy lately. We had some raccoons come through. I don't care what it is. Fix it. This isn't a kennel." And he turned and walked off. That was it. I stood there in my doorway, heart thumping. Not because I was scared, I was just stunned. No one had ever talked to me like that in this neighborhood. After that, I kept Baxter inside more. I bought a white noise machine for the bedroom. I even put up blackout curtains. Tried to train him to be quieter at night. Didn't matter. 3 days later, another knock. This time he was holding his phone up like he'd recorded proof of Baxter barking. "I called the police," he said flatly. "I'll keep calling." Then he left. Again, no discussion, no questions, no neighborly effort to work things out. Just threats. I got a voicemail from the city's non-emergency line. They said they'd had a report of a disturbance. A barking dog. I felt sick. Not because I thought Baxter had done anything wrong, but because this guy was clearly going to war over something tiny. A week later, I got a letter taped to my front door. From Animal Control. Verbal warning issued for noise disturbance. It wasn't even a ticket, but it felt like a punch. I called them and explained what was going on. The lady on the phone was polite, but she said complaints like this were common, and unless Baxter was barking nonstop all night, they usually didn't take further action. But if more calls came in, they'd have to check it out again. I asked how many complaints it takes before they take your dog. She paused.
"Depends," she said.
But 3's not good. That's when something snapped in me. Because that same night, around 11:45 p.m., I heard music from Green's backyard. Not loud party music, but definitely loud enough to shake the fence. Laughter, too. Drunk male voices. One of them yelled, "Whoa," like it was college again. It was a Thursday. I looked out the window. He had people over. They were drinking beers. One guy was standing on a chair waving a flashlight around. My dog growled from the bedroom. That's when I did it. I Googled the number for Animal Control.
I didn't even speak.
Just gave the address. "There's a dog barking pretty consistently next door," I said. "Every night." That's it. No more. And the next night, when his buddies were over again, I called again. Then again the night after. I waited for Baxter to bark once or twice, not long, just enough, and then I called. Not lying exactly. Just playing the game. 5 nights in a row. By night 6, there was a knock on my door. Animal Control again.
Different guy this time.
"We've had repeated complaints about a dog barking at this address," he said, looking down at his clipboard. "Can we speak inside?" I let him in. Baxter trotted over, wagging his tail like an idiot. "Doesn't seem like a problem dog," the guy said. "He's not," I said. "But someone's making it a problem." They wrote me a citation anyway. $150. warning that if it continued, they'd have to investigate further. Possible fines. Possible removal. I paid it the next day, no argument. But I was done being polite. So, I did something I'm not proud of. I bought a Bluetooth speaker. Small, portable, powerful. Every night around 11, I set it in my backyard, up against the fence that borders his property. I played faint barking sounds on a loop. Just soft enough to sound real, loud enough to register. Just enough to drive him crazy. And yeah, I kept calling animal control. Same dog. Still barking. After 3 more days, he came to my door. Not calmly. Not like a neighbor. He was pale, sweaty. Hair uncombed. I don't think he'd slept much. You have to stop, he said. I didn't say anything. I'm serious. Please. You win, okay? Just stop. I looked him dead in the eyes. Didn't flinch. You brought this on yourself, I said. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I said it. Like I wasn't supposed to fight back. And then he walked away. He thinks it's over. That now that he said, please, I'll back off. That we'll go back to being quiet neighbors and pretend it didn't happen. But no. Because I'm not done yet. He doesn't know what's coming next. The next day, something weird happened. I came home from running errands and found a folded note taped to my mailbox. No envelope. Just a wrinkled sheet of printer paper with shaky handwriting. Let's not escalate this. Please.
I've contacted a mediator.
We can talk like adults. No name. No number. But it didn't have to. It was him. I stood there holding it, wondering what part of the last month made him think I was interested in talking like adults. This guy went straight to threats and police the first week he moved in. Now he wanted to sit down and hug it out? I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. The next few nights were quiet. Too quiet. No music. No visitors. No lights past 10. His windows stayed shut, blinds drawn. The kind of quiet that's not peaceful. The kind that tells you something's happening behind the scenes. Then the letters started. Not to me. To the neighborhood. He went around hand-delivering flyers. Half a page, typed, with phrases like irresponsible dog ownership, multiple violations, and disturbances affecting property value. He didn't name me, but everyone knew who he was talking about. The woman across the street showed me her copy and raised her eyebrows. You okay over there? She asked. I shrugged.
Yeah.
He's just bored, I guess. Inside, I was boiling. So, I printed flyers of my own. Simple. Black ink. One sentence. If your neighbor threatens your home, your pet, and your peace, you have a right to respond. I didn't sign it. Just walked the street before sunrise, slipping them into mailboxes. Then I called the HOA. See, this neighborhood has weird old rules. Technically, using your property for surveillance or intimidation violates a clause in the community guidelines. I filed a formal complaint, attached photos of Green pointing cameras toward my backyard, recordings of him yelling through the fence. They scheduled a review hearing for June 10th, private, members only. I didn't tell him. Let him find out the fun way. Meanwhile, I had other plans. I found an old camcorder I had from years ago and mounted it in my kitchen window. Angle pointed directly at his driveway. Not hidden. Completely visible. 2 days later, he covered his side of the fence with a tarp. Petty? Sure. But this was war now.
Zobuban va.
Passive-aggressive, legal, exhausting. And still, he didn't get it. That Friday, animal control came back. But this time, not for me. I watched from my porch as they knocked on his door. 2 officers, clipboards in hand. I could hear them ask questions. Apparently, someone had reported his own dog, an old golden retriever, for aggressive behavior. I didn't file that report. I didn't need to. That's when it hit me. Someone else was getting involved. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe another neighbor had just had enough of Green. Maybe someone else was tired of his noise, his attitude, his late-night backyard talking that never seemed to stop, even after all the complaining. But that theory didn't last long. Because 3 days later, I found a note under my windshield wiper.
Typed. No signature.
Just a message. You're not the only one who's had problems with him. We're watching too. That was it.
No explanation.
No contact info. It unsettled me more than I want to admit. Because until then, this had been a two-person standoff. Me and him. Direct lines drawn. Rules broken. Rules twisted. But now it was like something else had crept into the game. Something I didn't control. I went inside and checked all my doors.
I didn't even know who we meant.
Could have been anyone. Someone on the HOA board? Another neighbor? A third party just stirring the pot? I didn't like not knowing. That night, I didn't sleep well. At 2 a.m., I looked out the window and saw something that made my stomach drop. Mr. Green was standing in his driveway, in a bathrobe, holding a flashlight. He was pointing it at my house. Just standing there, slowly sweeping the beam across the siding, the windows, the roof. No sound.
No motion.
Just the light. I grabbed my phone, snapped a photo, called the non-emergency line. Suspicious behavior, I said. Neighbor possibly casing property. Officers showed up 20 minutes later. I stayed inside and watched. They talked to him. He waved his arms a lot, kept looking over toward my house. The flashlight was still sitting on the hood of his car. Eventually, the officers left. He stayed outside another 5 minutes, just pacing his lawn. Then, finally, he went inside. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. Then the cameras appeared. 2 of them. One mounted on his front porch, angled toward my walkway. Another on the fence post, pointed directly into my backyard. Blatant. Almost mocking. I called the city. They said as long as the cameras weren't pointing through windows or being used for harassment, it wasn't a violation. I asked how they define harassment. The woman paused. It depends what the footage is used for.
Right.
I filed a formal complaint anyway, but it didn't matter. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about dragging me into the mud, forcing me to live in a constant state of defense. He wanted me unstable, on edge. But he made a mistake. Because while he was busy pointing cameras, I was making copies of every letter he sent, every time he showed up at my door, every recording, every email, every voicemail. I kept them all. I even got copies of the HOA meeting minutes where his name came up 3 separate times under resident disputes. I had a file now, and I was going to use it. I didn't go to the HOA hearing in person. I didn't need to. I sent in my complaint with attachments, screenshots, videos, timestamps, a 2-page timeline of every incident from the past 6 weeks. I highlighted the passive threats. I mentioned the flyers. I listed the names of 3 other neighbors who'd quietly told me, off the record, they weren't surprised by Mr. Green's behavior. 2 days after the meeting, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a short letter from the HOA. Formal language. But the message was clear. The board has decided to issue a formal warning to Mr. Green for conduct in violation of Article 4A, nuisance and harassment. Further incidents may result in fines or legal action. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the letter. It wasn't a win exactly, but it was movement. Something on paper. Something he couldn't ignore. And then, 2 nights later, the real crack in his armor showed. I was outside late, fixing the lock on my side gate.
Just me and a flashlight.
I heard footsteps coming up the sidewalk behind me. Turned and saw his wife. I'd seen her around before. Younger than him. Quiet. Always kept her head down. Never made eye contact. She looked nervous, like she didn't want to be seen. "I'm not trying to start anything," she said quickly. "But I thought you should know. He's been getting letters." I frowned. "What kind of letters?" She pulled something from her purse. Folded twice. No envelope. I opened it. Same format as the note under my wiper. Block letters. No name.
No signature.
Some people get tired of bullies. Some people start fighting back. I looked up at her. "He thinks it's you," she said. "He's obsessed. He watches your house every night. Keeps saying he's going to catch you. But it's not just you anymore. It's spreading." She hesitated. "I'm leaving him," she said quietly. "Next week. I already have a place lined up. But I didn't want you to get blindsided if something happens." Then she turned and walked back toward her house without waiting for me to respond. I stood there for a long time. It hit me then. I'd triggered something much bigger than I expected. This wasn't just petty revenge anymore. Something inside that man was unraveling. And not because I barked back. Because for once, someone didn't let him win. By the following weekend, the neighborhood felt off. People weren't outside like they used to be. Usually, you'd see someone mowing their lawn, walking a stroller, pulling weeds. But now it was like the whole block was holding its breath. I noticed it in little ways. How Mrs. Keating, 2 doors down, looked away when I waved. How the family across the street suddenly stopped parking their car in the driveway and started pulling it into the garage like they didn't want their license plate seen. Everyone got quieter. Green's house, though, it was loud in a different way. His lights were on all night. You could hear cabinets slamming, drawers opening. One night I heard him out back, talking loudly to someone on the phone about building a case. He mentioned hiring someone. Mentioned proof. Then it got quiet. Then the floodlights went up. Bright motion-sensing ones. 2 in the back, 1 on the side of the house, and another facing directly at my bedroom window. It lit up the entire side of my property, like a prison yard. I called the city. They said floodlights don't count as harassment unless they're strobing or causing electrical issues. Of course. That night, I didn't sleep, but I stayed up. I watched. Around 3 a.m., I saw him leave. Not in a panic. Not rushed. Just strange. He walked around his house with a small camera and started taking photos. Of his own property. His lawn. His fence. Even his mailbox. Then he stood in the middle of the street and started snapping pictures of my house. Slowly. One by one. Like he was documenting something for insurance. The next morning, a detective knocked on my door. Not a patrol officer. Not animal control. Detective Wilkes. Plain clothes.
Calm. Direct.
There was a report filed against you, he said. Alleging trespassing, property damage, and harassment. We're required to investigate all reports seriously. I let him in. I showed him my files. My footage. The letter from the HOA. The animal control fines, both mine and the one Green got. I even showed him the note Green's wife handed me and explained, carefully, what I had and hadn't done. He listened. Didn't say much. Asked for a copy of the footage and the timeline. I gave it all to him. Before he left, he paused in my doorway. Off the record, he said. You're not the only one he's filed against. But you're the only one who kept receipts. Then he left. I stood in the doorway for a long time. Because I realized then this wasn't about a dog. It never had been. It was about a man who couldn't stand not having control. And he was losing it. Not just over me, over everything. And now people were watching. Not just neighbors. Not just his wife. Authorities. Which meant one more thing. This time, I didn't need to finish it.
He would.
I haven't seen him in days. His lights are off, his camera stopped blinking, and the tarp on the fence is sagging like it gave up trying. Baxter still sleeps by the door, like he's waiting for another knock that won't come. And me, I just go about my day, pretending I don't check the street every time a car slows down. Because the truth is, I don't know if it's really over. I just know he's quiet now. And for the first time, that silence doesn't feel like peace. It feels like waiting.